The National Desk, America's News Now.
The default clock still ticks down as some lawmakers question the debt deal reached over the weekend.
We don't have a deal yet. We're not sure how many Republican votes can be produced. And it is all because Republicans said that they wanted to cut the deficit. And let's be clear that what they got from this was not that.
Americans honoring the fallen. We remember a rich history of war heroes who shaped our country.
Memorial Day is a very important day to most veterans. A lot of civilians think Memorial Day is for all veterans. Today we honor the people who allowed us to live in the country we live in.
As local and national school choice debates continue nationwide, some lawmakers say their plan will help military families who are on the move. Live from the nation's capital, this is the National Desk, America's News Now. I'm Dee Dee Gatton. We're glad you're with us. The legislation for the debt deal agreed to late Saturday night is out, and representatives are reviewing the details. It is expected that the House will vote on the bill Wednesday, but after weeks of negotiations, some on both sides of the aisle are raising concerns that this deal isn't worth it.
I think it was an abysmal failure on the part of Republican leadership. Quite honestly, this is a deal that we could have gotten with a Democrat majority.
Our caucus, and it's not just the progressives, across the ideological spectrum, including problem solvers, by the way, people feel that this is bad policy.
President Biden and Speaker McCarthy are actively whipping votes in the House to make sure the bill will make its way to the Senate. Despite misgivings, Democrat Congressman Adam Smith believes it will.
I think it likely gets the votes. I'm not in love with some aspects of the permitting reform that was included in this. But again, default's right around the corner. And from a budget deal perspective, anyone paying attention to this is about where we were going to be, given how the House, the Senate, and the White House are controlled right now.
The House Rules Committee will take a look at the debt deal legislation tomorrow at 3 p.m. Eastern. This is a monumental step before passage. On Wednesday, some Republicans on the Rules Committee, namely Chip Roy and Ralph Norman, already have been critical of the agreement, and both a hard no. If other Republicans don't give their support, Democrats will need to push the bill through. Republicans hold a 9-4 advantage in the committee. 7 votes are needed to advance the bill to the full House. Authorities wrapped up search and rescue efforts in Iowa after an apartment building partially collapsed. You get a sense of that chaotic scene here. Officials say this apartment in Davenport collapsed on Sunday afternoon, and 8 people, they were rescued from this wreckage, and at least 12 others were able to self-evacuate. It was still unclear as of Monday afternoon. Some more images for you. How many people were unaccounted for? The city announcing plans to demolish the building starting tomorrow morning. Residents were ordered not to go back inside to get their belongings because of the unsafe conditions. Investigators are looking into the cause of the collapse. It was a violent Memorial Day weekend with at least 43 people shot in 3 cities, the holiday marking the unofficial start of summer. And when law enforcement tends to see an uptick in shootings, 3 people were killed and 5 others hurt during a holiday motorcycle rally in the town of Red River, New Mexico. You can see all the cars lining up here. Emergency vehicles. Police say this shooting started with a fight between bikers, and they have arrested 30-year-old Jacob Castillo on murder charges. He was also injured in the shootout and hospitalized. In Chicago, police say at least 9 people are dead and 39 others hurt after another violent weekend in the city. Victims include a 35-year-old man killed while sitting in a parked car, according to officials. Another 3 were shot while walking in the city's Lakeview neighborhood. And just an hour before those incidents, a 14-year-old was shot and injured while standing on a sidewalk with others. Detectives are investigating the cases. And then in Arizona, police have arrested 20-year-old Iran buyers for a string of shootings in Phoenix and nearby Mesa that left 4 people dead and a woman injured. Now, court documents show most of the victims were homeless and may have been targeted by buyers for abusing fentanyl, which he didn't like. Again, according to authorities. Texas lawmakers were unable to pass a school choice bill before their legislative session ended today. It was a high priority for Governor Greg Abbott, but state House Democrats and rural Republicans opposed the vouchers as they claimed it would take much needed funds away from public schools. But as the debate over school choice plays out at the state level, a group of lawmakers on Capitol Hill argue military families deserve school choice too. National correspondent Kayla Gaskins joins us with more on a piece of federal legislation that some argue would help address a crisis in the classroom.
Military families often have little say in where they live. So a group of Republican lawmakers want to give them more choices when deciding where their kids can attend school.
Military families are told where to go next. Every 3 years, they move to a different base or are deployed to different locations around the world.
A bill introduced this session would give school choice to military families by creating an education savings account, $6,000 per year per kid.
We need our service members to have a good peace of mind of what's going on at home for their kids and their families, so that they can go and do their jobs to keep us safe and secure.
The money can be used for a wide array of educational services like private or religious school tuition, education-based summer programs, tutoring sessions, textbooks, and even laptops. One of the bill's sponsors, Representative Jim Banks, still serves in the Navy Reserves. Banks pointing out this comes as the military faces the worst recruiting crisis in the history of the all-volunteer force.
All of the branches are way below their recruitment targets. And one of the biggest drivers for why families or service members get out of the military is because of their kids' educational choices.
The Army on track to fall short of its recruiting goal again this year, after missing last year's mark by 15,000. The Navy and Air Force also struggling as the U.S. faces increased tensions with Russia and China.
At the end of the day, it's a readiness issue. It's a peace of mind issue. It's a quality of life issue for our service members to know that their kids are getting the best educational option available to them.
Representative Banks and his co-sponsors argue as Congress works on ways to attract more young people into the military, they should also do everything in their power to keep the personnel they already have. In Washington, I'm Kayla Gaskins.
South Carolina Senator in Russia. Russia's Interior Ministry has put Graham on a wanted list, according to a report from Russian state media today. This move comes after Ukraine's presidential office released a video of Graham's meeting with Vladimir Zelensky on Friday. Graham is shown in that video saying the Russians are dying and that U.S. aid to Ukraine was the best money we've ever spent. The senator stated today in a tweet, "I will wear the arrest warrant issued by Putin's corrupt and immoral government as a badge of honor." President Biden attended the traditional wreath-laying ceremony at Arlington National Cemetery today, where he honored the sacrifice of U.S. troops who died fighting for their country.
As it is for so many of you, the pain of his loss is with us every day, but particularly sharp on Memorial Day.
The president was accompanied by First Lady Jill Biden, Vice President Kamala Harris, and her husband, Second Gentleman Douglas Emhoff. The Bidens also hosted a breakfast at the White House early this morning and were scheduled to return to their Delaware home after the ceremony. Meantime, in Oregon, the Republican walkout of the state Senate continues and is threatening the passage of many bills, including those to help veterans. Ricardo Lewis is following the latest.
There are several bills that would support members of the military and veterans, but if the Republican-led Senate walkout continues, many of those bills are on the chopping block. These are bills that Democratic State Senator James Manning Jr. says are critically important. As the Republican-led Senate walkout nears its fourth week, Democratic State Senator James Manning Jr. is calling on Oregon Senate Republicans to get back to work, as he says there are important issues relevant to veterans on the line.
We were elected to come here and do the work for the people of Oregon.
Manning Jr. is a military veteran. He honorably retired from the United States Army after over 24 years of active service. He says there's a laundry list of veteran-related bills, including House Bill 2147.
What the bill does, it allows VSOs and VA to secure those crematory remains and give proper burial to those veterans. So it's a really big deal.
Manning Jr. is also pushing for the passage of House Bill 2295, which would expand veterans' preferences in public contracting to include all veteran-owned businesses. Currently, it includes veterans who were disabled in service.
In the state of Oregon, what I have been trying to do is make Oregon a more veteran-friendly state. As it is right now, it's not.
There is also concern over Oregon veterans' retirement pay. Manning Jr. says veterans aren't staying in the state because of the taxes. Senate Bill 178 would allow an exemption of $17,500 from veterans' retirement pay. However, if there is no quorum on the Senate floor, these bills can't pass.
I am hopeful, but it is critically important that we finish the work that we started.
Republicans have vowed to come back on June 25th, which is the last day of the session. They say on that day, they are only willing to pass the budget and bipartisan bills. Some of the bills Senator Manning Jr. is fighting for do have bipartisan support.
Coming up next, the pandemic public health emergency is over, but there's another infectious disease on the CDC's radar. Why it's catching the agency's attention and what to look out for. And there's a new law in an African country that the UN Human Rights Office describes as appalling. We'll tell you the measures allowed by the legislation. Then, how much you could save as you plan your summer vacation with a tech tool. We'll explain after the break. After 73 years, Medal of Honor recipient Luther Story is home and was reburied today with full military honors at the Andersonville National Cemetery in Savannah, Georgia. Story was presumed dead on September 1st of 1950 in the Korean War when he was wounded and stayed behind to fight as his company actually retreated the battlefield. His body was recovered about a month later but was unidentified. DNA testing this April confirmed his identity. According to the Defense POW MIA accounting agency, more than 7,500 Americans who served in the Korean War remain missing or their remains have not been identified. And all around the country, Gold Star families remember their relatives, the ones who served and died, giving their lives for their country. A major highway.
Michael Harold Flatt of Toledo, Illinois, is someone who gave his all. His sister shares the meaning of Memorial Day and what it means to be a Gold Star family.
It's an honor to be one because I know my brother fought along with his Company B brothers and saved several people.
To Marlene Van Meter, that's what it means to be a Gold Star family. Her love for her brother is undeniable. Her backyard, you can find a wooden statue that was carved by a chainsaw into the soldier's cross, which is a visible memory of a fallen soldier. She has spent a greater part of her life finding answers to how her brother, Michael Harold Flood, who died in the thick elephant grass, which grew in the jungle during the Vietnam War. Why she does it is simple.
Because I can keep his name alive.
Her brother was known as Doc Flood. He was a medic in the 3rd Platoon, Company B, for the 101st Airborne Combat. The search first started with her mother, who sent dozens of handwritten letters to soldiers searching for answers. Many years later, and conflicting stories later, her mother passed the torch to her to keep looking for the truth. Decades later, during the mid-2000s, Marlene and her husband made it the Company B reunion, standing face to face with fellow soldiers that served with her brother, but not just any soldier.
But the man who was holding my brother when he died.
She says creating the bond with the fellow service members can be described in one word: healed.
They have told me that they feel healed now, that they've been able to tell the horrible things that they have viewed throughout their tours of duty.
So on this Memorial Day, Van Meter says,
Memorial Day is the one day out of the year that everybody in the United States are to remember all of those who gave their whole self for our freedoms that we enjoy every day.
If you are struggling with the loss of a loved one, organizations like TAPS offer military survivor and good grief camps to help with healing. In studio, I'm Phoenix O'Connor.
A good reminder, Phoenix, thank you. A major highway in Ohio has reopened today after a fiery crash. You get a sense that these images behind me, it happened early this morning in West Columbus. Police say a swath of Interstate 70 was closed after a semi-truck caught fire and burst into flames. The road was closed for hours. One person was rushed to the hospital in stable condition. No other vehicles besides the truck were involved. Ugandan President Yoweri Museveni has just passed a law allowing the death penalty to be used for aggravated homosexuality. That's defined as cases of sexual activity between people with HIV as well as with minors. Under the law, a suspect can be convicted and imprisoned for up to 14 years. The UN Human Rights Office is calling the law appalling. Activists can appeal the legislation. The COVID public health emergency is over, but a virus with similar symptoms is on the Centers for Disease Control's radar. Cases of human metapneumovirus, or HMPV, have been spiking recently in the U.S. Peak positive test rates this spring were about 36% higher than the average pre-pandemic seasonal peak. According to the CDC, no specific development. Symptoms to look out for include a lower lung infection, hacking cough, runny nose, sore throat, and fever. Paleontologists in Florida have made a groundbreaking discovery. A team from the Florida Museum of Natural History volunteers and University of Florida students found extinct elephant fossils in a dig site near Gainesville. A museum employee said the species is different from modern elephants in that it has 4 tusks. He estimates the bones age to be 5 to 6 million years old. The skeletons will be cleaned and stabilized before they can be studied. The National Desk team of reporters is bringing you the headlines from coast to coast. We're taking the pulse of America, starting in Florida, where a nonprofit based in Naples is working to increase brain donation for research.
My dad died of Lewy body's dementia back in 2015.
He had planned to donate his body for anatomical study. But then his daughter, Tish Hevel, decided it made more sense to donate his brain to science.
At the time, it was really complicated.
A complicated process. That's why a year later, Tish launched a nonprofit, the Brain Donor Project.
We serve as the intake partner for the NIH's Neurobiobank, which is their structure of brain banks.
Making it easy to pre-register for you or a loved one to be a brain donor.
Almost everybody thinks that brain donation is a part of organ donation.
It is not. That's why you need to do it separately. This NIH brain research focusing on so many neurological diseases beyond Parkinson's and dementia.
Huntington's disease, autism, severe mental illnesses. 1 in 5 of us suffers from some kind of neurologic disease or disorder. When you can identify these things, then you can go to work on fixing them.
In Oregon, the man accused of intentionally setting fire to a Southeast Portland apartment complex on May 16th is currently being held without bail. 30-year-old Garrick Rapp pleaded not guilty to the charges against him, which includes multiple counts of first-degree arson. The apartment fire left dozens without homes and injured 2 firefighters. One former tenant said and shared concerns about Rapp to the building's manager. That's what they said, and they said this tragedy could have been prevented.
This was predictable. I have called this months ago that he was conditioning the tenants and the fire department to not care when he actually did this. I said that 4 months ago.
And the building manager declined to comment on the situation. Rapp will be back in court for an arraignment on June 6th. Over to Montana, a federal judge in Missoula is allowing the U.S. Forest Service to continue its use of fire retardant despite finding that the practice violates the nation's clean water law. This comes after USFS was sued by an environmental group which claimed the agency was hurting waterways and wildlife by dropping fire retardant. The judge sided with the agency, saying stopping the use of this would result in greater harm to human lives and property. USFS has applied for a permit to allow it to use this. It must report back to the judge every 6 months on its progress. Coming up, we'll tell you how much you might be able to save as you plan your summer vacation using a certain type of technology. Lisa Fletcher with Spotlight on America reports on what could be tremendous saving for you depending on where you search.
You think you're getting the best vacation deal, comparing prices as you change up travel sites. But what you're not changing up is where you are when you book your trip.
Richer countries, we see that they tend to often overpay for same offerings elsewhere.
It's called dynamic pricing. Companies maximize profits by changing the price depending on who's buying when and from where.
If you're looking to book a flight and then you recheck that same flight, a few hours later, the price will be different.
Gerald Kasoulis is with NordVPN. They recently commissioned a study using a VPN, a common security tool that encrypts data and hides your IP address, to trick travel sites into thinking they were in countries other than the U.S. when booking cars and hotels.
We were shocked by the results.
Using a server in Mexico to access Hotels.com saved a whopping $57,000 on this luxury Los Cabos hotel that cost 68% more using a U.S. server. Using an Italian server to access Booking.com, they saved $543 on a family vacation to Venice, and often were able to pick up rental cars for a third less than what identical sites were offering when they detected a U.S. server.
Those algorithms are being used against us to potentially trick us into paying more than we should be paying. I think it's time that we take control into our own hands as well and start using those algorithms to our own advantage.
We put it to the test, comparing identical car rentals and hotel stays for a family of 4 using my U.S. IP address and then using a VPN to make the websites think I was in another country.
There we go.
Most of the time, the prices were comparable, but occasionally,
oh wow,
there were some real money-saving opportunities. London's Royal Garden Hotel was $62.86 for a family of 4 when I used my U.S. IP address, but switched to one in the U.K., and I saved more than $350. On average, our savings were around 7%.
I always use VPNs.
Travel writer Brock Bloom, who caught up with us from Taiwan, says patience is key.
Does this work 100% of the time?
No, there are going to be people who use this and they don't see a change. It's either option 1, that website is not using dynamic pricing, or option 2, they are, but you're just choosing the wrong areas. You got to keep kind of bouncing around until you find the right server.
And Bloom says VPNs can help you get around all kinds of dynamic pricing to outsmart industry and get some savings satisfaction.
Airbnb uses it. Amazon uses it. Major League Baseball has used it. Ticketmaster uses it. So yeah, it's not just traveling that you can benefit by using VPN from.
For international travel, Bloom suggests picking a server that's close to your destination. And for domestic travel, try one that's near your airline's headquarters, or at least not near a major metro area. Go to SpotlightInvestigates.com for more tips from Kasulis and Bloom. Plus, we'll give you the step-by-step on how to use a VPN to maximize your travel savings. For Spotlight on America, I'm Lisa Fletcher. An ongoing shortage of lifeguards is keeping thousands of pools nationwide closed or under limited hours, according to the American Lifeguard Association. They say the shortage sets a dangerous risk for families over the summer. Several states are launching incentive programs in hopes of finding new recruits, like in Philadelphia, where Temple University students can get college credit for lifeguarding, or Austin, Texas, which simply increase their wages. That's going to do it for us. Join us again tonight at 10 Eastern for more on the National Desk.